Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm finally going to sit down and show you my makeup empties from the year of 2020. This is all the makeup that I've used up in 2020. I have over 80 items to show you today, so why don't we go ahead and get into it. Okay, as we get started, I know I have over 80 items here to show you today, so I'm going to try to go through these as quickly as possible. The first one here is a Beauty Tools. This is an Eco Tools sponge. I love the shape of this thing, but I find the quality isn't that great, and mine always breaks within like 2 or 3 months, so sadly I won't be purchasing any more of these. Then I have 6 primers here that I've used up in 2020. Now, a couple of these were like mini or deluxe sizes, but I'll try to show you least favorite to favorite. This was a NYX Soft Focus Primer, and it was kind of like a silicone press kind of thing, and you had a sponge and you would like press it into your pores before you put on your makeup. I found that this kind of made me oily if I went in a little too, like with a little too much product. So this one definitely is a pass. I'm not even sure if they sell this anymore, but it definitely made me oily and I don't need that. So probably the next most underwhelming one would have been this Baby Skin one from Maybelline. I found that it was really similar to the Smashbox kind of silicone primers, but I didn't really think that it really helped that much in terms of like pore minimization. And it markets itself as a pore eraser. I think the Smashbox one is just slightly maybe better than this, although they are very, very comparable. However, this is definitely not a bad product, and if I ever had one of these again, I would gladly use it up. It's definitely not bad. It just wasn't my favorite, if that makes sense. Same thing goes for this little Benefit primer. It did fill pores decently well, not the best that I've ever seen. If these come into my life in like Sephora favorites kits or things like that, I'm happy for it. I'm glad to use them up, although I don't know if I'd actually go out and purchase like full size of this one. Okay, so the last 3 primers, I actually liked all of them. This is the Q10 from NYX. This one just felt like a lotion, like a nice hydrating kind of primer, and on days when I was really dry, I found that my skin liked that pretty well. Although I think this one has been discontinued, and I also know that this one has been discontinued too. This is the Hocus Focus primer from Soap & Glory. I'm so sad that they discontinued this. This was a little bit of like an illumination primer. It wasn't glittery or didn't have big flecks of glitter in it. It just left you with like a really nice kind of dewy complexion, and it had a little bit of a peach undertone to it. I just really loved this one. I was really sad to see this one gone, even though this one was pretty old in my collection and I needed to get it gone, but I'm sad to see it go, if that makes sense. And then this last primer is probably the one that surprised me the most when I first used it. This is the Hourglass Mineral Veil Primer. When I first used this one, I had used it with some like, I tried it with a mattifying foundation and a mattifying like spray because I thought it was going to be, it looked like a lotion, like it looked kind of like a white cast, and so I thought it was going to be really hydrating, like maybe too hydrating. And the first time I wore it, it looked awful on my skin. My skin looked so dry, it looked so like just sucked of moisture. So this one was one that I had to learn to wear. Like I had to learn to pair it with some other things. Like I have some other foundations that end up breaking up on me earlier in the day because they tend to make my skin a little bit more oily. And this combination with some of those other foundations in my collection was perfect. And I'm a little bit sad to say it for my wallet's sake, but I actually would consider picking this up in the future because I think that this was one of the few primers that I've ever tried in my life that actually helped keep my oils at bay. I have oily T-zone, and I need something that won't make me too dry, but also will help my makeup not break up in like my T-zone by the end of the day. And this one was a really nice primer. It's not one that I paired with other primers. If I wore this one, I used it on its own, and typically I like to pair primers. So that's one slight drawback, but at the same time, it's kind of not if you think about it. Like it's a one and done primer, and it's a good primer, and it's good at what it does. So I kind of miss this one too. Okay, next category we have foundation, and my least favorite foundation absolutely would have been this Lumi True Match foundation. This I bought like so long ago on Jaclyn Hill's recommendation, and I just realized we definitely have very different skin types. This broke up on me, it looked heavy on me, it made me, it would definitely emphasize my pores. That's a definite no for me. Now this one here, this Stay Matte But Not Flat powder foundation from NYX, it's really not bad, but I found that I kind of went through it a little quicker than I thought, and I think that I have better powder foundations in my collection. My Bare Minerals powder foundations are much better. I think I get a little bit more coverage with them, and I just like the way my skin looks with those. And this just kind of reminded me of like a pressed powder that I would set my face with, and I didn't get a ton of coverage from this, so this one's not something I would repurchase. Now these two here are absolute favorites. This is an Origins Ginseng SPF. It was basically a tinted moisturizer, and this kind of just tiptoed that line between not really providing coverage and providing like just enough coverage to like kind of even my skin tone out so that I could go on top with like a powder foundation and really like my like light kind of makeup day. Like if I wanted to kind of just love and adore my skin, this is one that I'll reach for a ton, and I miss this one, although I think this retails for like $40, and I just cannot bring myself to pay that, even though part of me thinks that it might be worth it. I miss this product. Now the other foundation here is the It CC cream, and I love love this thing. I have a backup right now. Actually, I have the full coverage moisturizer, but to me, they're almost the exact same product. This one maybe just has the lightest, like little bit of less coverage than this one, but honestly, they're almost identical. So I will never be without one of these in my collection. I just buy whichever one's on sale once I get low, and these are just things that are staples in my collection. Okay, moving into concealers, I have 4. This guy here is discontinued, so I can't repurchase it if I wanted to, but also I don't think, this is the NYX Dark Circle Concealer, by the way. I don't think this one did a really good job of correcting my dark under eyes. I have very, very prominent dark under eyes, and it's just not enough for me. I prefer something that's super full coverage when it comes to concealer. Now this guy here, the Wet n Wild concealer, I think it's the Photo Focus one. Again, not enough coverage for me, and this one I also felt was a little bit drying for what I prefer. I didn't love this one at all. Now these two were better for me. This is the Ulta concealer, and I found that this one is, again, not full coverage, but it does claim to be waterproof, and I do think that it is somewhat more waterproof. It won't last all day, but if I'm going to hang out at a pool or if I'm going on vacation at the beach, this is one that I like to have with me because I find that it lasts longer than typical other concealers, if that makes sense. Now this guy here is the ColourPop concealer, the no filter concealer. I quite like this one. I don't think it's quite as full coverage as what I would like it to be, but it's probably one of the better drugstore concealers that I tried. And I also like to use this one under like powder foundation too. I think that it helps kind of correct my skin pretty well, and I personally like how it looks on my skin, even though I know I've heard some people say that this is drying. I don't really have an issue with it being too drying, as long as I don't like overdo it, if that makes sense. Okay, moving into the next category, we have powder, and I have 3 empties here. I definitely think I would prefer this one the least. This is an e.l.f. like translucent powder. It was okay, but I found that I don't really think this was worth, I think I got it on sale for like $1, but I think it retails for about $3 or $4 maybe. And yeah, you don't get a ton of product, not really worth it in my opinion. But let me tell you, these other 2 powders are worth it in my opinion. This is the Maybelline Fit Me powder. I used this up in my year-long project pan, and then I used the Bare Minerals Mineral Veil, the hydrating mineral veil, in another year-long project pan. Hopefully you'll be able to see it's empty. But both of these I thought were very, very good powders. I've used up the pressed version of this one before. This is my first loose version of this. I prefer the loose one. I do like the pressed version too. I actually have one in my collection that I tend to put like in my purse for like blotting, but I loved this powder. I felt like it gave just a little bit of extra coverage, just a little thicker than this powder, but this one definitely has a place in my collection in that it is the most finely milled powder I've ever tried, and I thought it was really great, especially in those like winter days when my skin starts to struggle a little bit and I get a little bit more dry as the weather gets colder. This is one that I really, really enjoyed, and I would definitely pick this powder up again. Okay, next up, let's talk about bronzers and highlights. I have one highlighting item that I used up. This was a NYX Liquid Illuminator in the shade Sunbeam, and I cut that one open. I ended up putting this into a lotion because I found that the more I used it on my face, the more I realized it had a pretty significant kind of glitter in it, so I didn't really like to use it as a primer, and I didn't love how pinky toned it was on my cheeks, so I ended up using it in a lotion, and I actually really, really loved it in a body lotion. Like, I actually would consider picking this up again on sale or something to put them in body lotions because I really liked it in a body lotion. Okay, let's talk about these next 2. This was a NYX concealer in the shade Nutmeg. This I picked up a couple years ago when like cream contouring or like was a thing with concealer, and it definitely was a little too dark. I had to go really light, and it took a while to use up because it was so pigmented, but hopefully you can see that I ended up digging everything out. I liked this, but I do think that if I picked up another cream, like I genuinely thought that this was a nice concealer to kind of cream contour with, but if I pick something like this up again, I might try a different shade, like a slightly lighter shade, because it was a little too intense for me most of the time in the year, maybe not in the summer. But this other guy here is the Pure Cameo Cream Contour Stick or something like that, and in my opinion, this thing was a giant waste of money. I ended up not digging this side out because I didn't really like that. Like, I found that it was a little bit dry, but I did end up digging this side out. This contour side was like a decent color for me, but again, the creams I thought weren't that, like, they were a little too dry for my liking. I found them a little bit difficult to like blend out, but also this thing I believe retailed like full price for more than like $30 or something like that, and you got little to no product in it. Like, it's laughable how much product was in this guy. Like, can you see? That is how deep it was. That's it. That's how much contour you got. And then the exact same side over here had the exact same amount of like highlight. And I just think that that is a giant ripoff for your money. So I don't even think you can buy this anymore, but it's rightly so because it is not a good product. Okay, so the last 2 items in this bronzing category are palettes, and I can't believe that I finished 2 freaking palettes in 1 year. This was the Makeup Revolution Ultra Contour palette. I did end up scraping a couple of the like highlight shades in here that just didn't look that great on my skin. I ended up putting them into some lotion, so that is how I ended up using this one up, but I'm so excited to have finished both of these. And I have to say, in my opinion, this e.l.f. contour palette was better than the Makeup Revolution palette. They're both fine palettes, but I just found that I enjoyed this one slightly more. I did end up scraping the highlight shade out of this one too and putting it in some lotion because, again, that highlight didn't really look that great on my skin, but the other 3 powders in this one were pretty good. Okay, next category is brows, and I have 4 empties here. The only empty that I did not really enjoy was this e.l.f. brow pencil. I found that it was a little too waxy and occasionally would like pull my brow hair, so this one was one I would not repurchase, but I would actually get all 3 of these again. The Precisely My Brow Pencil from Benefit was really nice, although I do think that I need a slightly bigger pencil. But if you're someone who has thicker brows and you kind of just need to like fill in small areas, a pencil like this is really nice from them. Now, I actually think I prefer the pomade the most, even though this thing took me like almost 3 years to go through. I just think that this is the easiest because my brows are a little bit more sparse and I need to do a little bit more filling in than like the normal person maybe would. So a pomade for me is a much quicker kind of form than like penciling in my brows. And then this other empty here is the Make Me Brow by Essence. I really quite like this. This was in the shade dark brown. I actually prefer the shade soft brown, I think it is, or soft brownie browns or something, because I think that it helps tone. Sometimes, if I'm being honest, sometimes I have the tendency to go a little bit too hard on my brows, so that softer brown kind of shade not only helps tone it down a little bit, but also like I have a good bit of gray hair that's coming in and it's only going to come in more and more, and I think that the more ashy kind of shades on my eyebrows tend to suit me a little bit better, so that kind of like that soft brownie brown color helps kind of like tone down enough to like almost match the grays in my hair, if that makes sense. Okay, moving into eye products in general, I think we have about 19 items to get through in this. So I have 3 eyeshadow primers, and one of them was an eyeshadow pencil stick that I used as a primer from CoverGirl. They don't even make this anymore, but I certainly don't think that these items are something that I intend to use. I find them to be an extra step. I don't quite need like a sticky base like this all the time, so I won't be buying those again. And then the other thing here was an Ulta eyeshadow primer. This one actually had 2 ends, and I only counted this side as my empty because this smoky side here ends up being like, I don't know what this is. Maybe in theory it would have been a good primer, but for me it doesn't look good, and it certainly doesn't really offer much in terms of priming. But this side was pretty good. This is very comparable to like the Lorac eyeshadow primer, which I have here, and the Urban Decay primer. They're all of that kind of like waxy feeling kind of primer. So I actually quite like these kind of primers, and I thought that this one was pretty good, and I would actually consider using something like this again. Although I will say I just started trying the Milani eyeshadow primer base, and it is very good and very cheap and affordable compared to something like Urban Decay or Lorac. Okay, next up we have 4 eyeliners, and this one here was like a little Rimmel guy. I actually ended up hitting the wax in this one. Hopefully you can see that. This one was definitely something that I enjoyed more in the beginning when I had it. Towards the end, it started bleeding more and more on me and would end up like down like below my eyes. I don't know if this one just got old and that's why it started doing it, or maybe my eyes have changed. I'm not quite sure, but I definitely want to try something else because I don't need my eyeliner bleeding or going anywhere like that. Now these 3 eyeliners, I have 2 of the same ones. These are the tattoo liners from Kat Von D, and this is a Maybelline Master Precise All Day. This is probably the best drugstore eyeliner that I've tried. It has a felt tip, but I do think that the Kat Von D ones, they have a brush tip, and they tend to like dry out a little like less quickly than like the Maybelline one. And it's funny, when I was using this, I was thinking to myself, oh, it's fine, it does the job, it gets everything done. And now that I don't have it and I'm having to use a different eyeliner pencil, I find that I really miss this one. So I'm hoping to find like a dupe for this one in the drugstore range, because I don't do winged eyeliner that often, but when I do, this is really, really nice. Okay, next up we have mascaras, and I have 5 here. I have a Clinique one, wasn't very good. I have the Superhero from It, and I found that this one ended up being hard to keep hydrated. I dried out way too often, and I didn't really think it did much for my lashes. Now the Lancome primer was probably one of the best primers that I've ever tried, although I don't know if it's necessary for me. And then the Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara is decent, but I didn't really love it. I honestly think that I like the packaging of this guy more than I like the actual formula, although the formula wasn't terrible. And then this voluminous one from L'Oreal was okay too. I actually think that they were kind of similar. Like, I don't remember them like either one being better than the other one, if that makes sense, but none of these are my favorite for the year. Okay, last up in the eye category, we have several lashes here. We have 6 pairs of lashes, and then we have a tube of Duo Lash Adhesive. I like this lash adhesive. If you're someone who needs more time to kind of work with a product and you need to take your time to get your lashes on, this one is a good one. It takes a little bit of time to dry and you get a little bit of more time to work with it. But recently I started using this Duo Lash Adhesive here, and I think that this one is a little bit better at like holding my lashes on. However, it is something that dries way more quickly and you have to work way more quickly with it. So while this one threw me for a loop when I first started using it, now that I'm used to it, I feel like I like it more than the other one. Plus I like the fact that this has a little like brush tip applicator. And quickly about the lashes, I think all of these are different styles of Ardell lashes. I was using these from like an Ardell lash book, I think they were, and a couple of them were like old from like sets like this. So I like Ardell lashes, but I tend to prefer the like faux mink styles that they have. So Ardell lashes are great if you're looking for a place to start and you're trying to think about getting into lashes. Although I think that there are some higher end lash brands that are really fun, and if you really get into lashes, some of them are worth the splurge. Okay, so I'm looking over, I can see that I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we have 4 kind of sprays to talk about. One of them I used as a makeup setting spray. This one here, the Peach Mist from Too Faced. I found that this is a good blotting spray. I didn't really love it to set my makeup. Now the other 3 here, I actually ended up, and I probably have more empties from the year somewhere in the house. Like I tend to make my own setting sprays, but these I finished in my skincare this year. But since I put them in my when I showed them in hauls and put them in my makeup inventory and my makeup budget, I wanted to show them here, even though technically I used most of these up as skincare, if that makes sense. But I do like to repurpose these bottles and make my own setting spray. I actually have a little video as a part of a Shop My Stash where I did that, so I'll link that if anyone's interested. Okay, we're moving into the last category, lip products. I have 30 empties this year. Can you believe that? And while I am so actually thrilled about 30 empties in the lip care product, 11 of those go to Bo. Bo finished 11 lip products this year, and I show these in hauls again, so I told him that I would save them at the end of the year, and I've been showing them in all my empties. So to show everybody, he has 11 lipped empties this year. He finished up several Carmexes. Now I wanna say that I might have finished 1 Carmex up, but I actually don't remember, so I'm gonna give him credit for all 11 of them. Several tubs and several tubes and 1 little chapstick here. He's promised me that he does not eat them, but I know that he has a bit of windburn that he always deals with because he does a lot of biking here, and I know that these kind of things give him a lot of relief because they have that kind of tingling sensation to them. So shout out to Bo for finishing 11 lip products this year. So the other 19 empties were mine, and I'm actually honestly just shocked that I finished that many. I will go through these are more lip care kind of centered ones. I have a Bite Beauty sample. I had a scrub and a balm in it, and this was pretty decent, although I think that they reformulated this, so I don't think I would need to try the new formula to know if I would want to pick it up. Now this here, the Laneige Lip Sleeping Mask, I really enjoyed. It took me 2 years to finish this thing up, but I really enjoyed this one, and I actually would pick this up again, although I have some other lip masks that I'm just now trying out for the first time, so we'll see if maybe one of those rivals this one. Now these 2 here, this was a lip mask that ended up kind of being more of an exfoliator for Mary Kay. This one was super old, would not pick that up again. The Ulta lip mask I found that was like oily and both goopy at the same time. I didn't really like that one at all. Now the NYX Everything Lip Oil, this is really nice. I actually really like this one, and I have a backup with this, so that says a lot because I really think this is a pretty decent lip oil. Okay, so these other 14 items are actually things that I would wear like with makeup looks. Sometimes I would wear them a little bit on their own if I wasn't wearing makeup, but for the most part, these are all kind of like lip. They deposit some sort of color, if that makes sense. I have 2 lip liners. One is from an Italia brand that was like a little discount brand from Amazon. I didn't hate this. It was pretty decent kind of lip liner. This here though is my favorite lip liner. This is Buxom in the shade Hush Hush. I love the Buxom formula, and it took me forever to go through this. Like, I know that not a lot of people, or some people, don't like how thick these kind of pencils are. It doesn't bother me, and I actually like that I get so much value in these kind of pencils. I think they're well worth the money. Okay, these next 4 I grabbed together because they're all kind of like balms that have that deposit color. This was a Bite Beauty balm in the shade Juice. I really liked this, although I do think that they've gotten rid of this. I haven't really seen it in their new lineup, so that's a little bit sad. Now the Cha Cha balm from Benefit was super nice, although I did go through this pretty quickly. I think I went through this in like 2 to 3 months, so So I don't know if I would ever repurchase this again because I do think it's about $20 full retail price, so not probably worth the money for me. These were Revlon Kiss balms or like chapstick kind of things. They have a little bit of SPF in them. I like these for keeping in my purse, so I actually would consider picking these up again. I know I've seen these in like the Ulta clearance section from time to time, so I'm not sure if they're getting rid of these. I hope not. I really liked these. They're not bad. Next up, I have two lipsticks. One is a liquid lipsticks from Etude House. I really like this. I used this to the point where I ended up breaking the packaging, so there is a little bit more product in there, but hopefully you can see that like it became unusable later on as I started to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and try to get more and more product out. But I like the color of this, and I found that in the liquid lipstick world, this formula was not that drying, so I quite enjoyed this one. And it also looked really good as like a cream blush. And the other thing here is a lippy stick from ColourPop. I can't even give you a swatch anymore. This one is, oh, I can't even tell you. Bound, I think was the shade name too. This was one of the glossy formulas. I didn't really love it. I thought that it kind of could give me that like kind of butthole lip that where it wears away ungracefully in the middle of your lips. So definitely wouldn't try the glossy formula again, although I hear really good things about the maybe like the satin or the matte formulas. If you have a favorite formula in this, let me know, because I'd be interested in trying some of these in the future, but I just don't know where to start. Okay, last up here we have several glosses to go through. I think the least favorite would probably be this chapstick. This was technically a lip oil, but it looked like a gloss. It was thick like a gloss. I didn't find this to be hydrating. In fact, I thought that if I wore it too like back to back, it would kind of dry my lips out, so that was definitely a letdown. This other one here also did kind of a similar thing. This is the Revlon Color Stay Moisture Stain. This is definitely more of a stain than a lip gloss, and I definitely didn't love it. I ended up trying to use it up as a blush, and hopefully you can see like it didn't do bad, but it wasn't the best cream blush. I have other shades in this range in my collection still, and I probably really need to come to terms with letting them go, because not only are they ridiculously old, but they're not really what I want. I wanted them to be a gloss, and I find them to be a little bit dehydrating, and then they don't really look that great as they wear off my lips like I would want them to. I also have two glosses here from Ulta. I find that these little glosses are really not bad. I actually really love this orange color, but if you're looking and you haven't tried the Ulta formula, I think they're pretty good, although they're not my favorite. Now these two here are probably my favorite gloss formulas. I really like glosses that tingle. The Soap and Glory glosses are not my favorite. They do tingle. They're not too intense, although they are more intense of a tingle than the Buxom glosses, but I find that this tingle feels a little bit more artificial than like the Buxom ones. The Buxom ones almost feel a little bit like they come from like some sort of natural mint, although I don't know what actually causes the tingle. I don't know if it is something artificial, but I much prefer the Buxom gloss. But this one here really isn't bad at all. I have a couple other Soap and Glory glosses that I need to get through in my collection, but in the future I honestly think that I would be a happy girl if my collection of glosses ended up being like mostly Buxom, and then maybe I do want to try the Fenty gloss one day, maybe that, but like I really love these Buxom glosses. This one was in the shade Jasmine, and I used this one up, like it seemed like it was dark in the tube, like hopefully you can see like the wand, you can see what color the gloss was, but I found that like on my lips it pulled like that, like it wasn't too deep, and I really again I sing every high praise that I can for these Buxom glosses. I really like them. Okay, I hope you stuck around for this fun part. This is the part that makes me really excited. In 2019 I finished 48 items, and that totaled to about $437. This year, or technically last year in 2020, I finished over 80 items, and they totaled up to $741. And if you watched my end of year like empties, my beauty empties for 2020, you would have seen that like my empties total, which I don't quite remember off the top of my head, but 50% of that total was makeup, if that makes sense. So again, $741 of makeup used up this year. I'm just so stinking excited. As I was doing my empties this year, I had no idea that I was gonna get that close. I was kind of hoping to hit 500 maybe, but this is far more than I anticipated, so I'm really excited. Let me know in the comments, did you do a makeup empties for the year? If so, what was your total? Or if you want to share your total, you can. But yeah, I'm super excited. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.